I trusted our night concierge because he actually worked. He remembered tenant names, carried packages, walked old folks to their door. He also kept a little notebook that he called for deliveries. One Saturday, I got a ticket for buzzers not working on the 6th floor. I opened the panel room and found the buzzer board fine, but the ceiling tile above it was disturbed. Dust ring, fresh fingerprints. Somebody had been up there. I pulled the tile and found a second device zip-tied to the conduit. Tiny router, battery pack, and a strip of tape with unit numbers written in the concierge's handwriting. It wasn't a prank. It was a private network sitting on our building's wiring like a tick. I stayed on the ladder too long, breathing dust, trying to decide if I was about to ruin my own job or stop something worse. The router blinked steady. The battery pack looked new, not some junk drawer brick. The zip ties were cinched tight and clipped clean. Whoever put it there didn't rush. They planned it, mounted it, tested it, then slid the tile back like it was normal maintenance. I took photos the way you do when you know you're about to get blamed. Wide shot to prove location, close shots of ports, the conduit label, the tape with the unit numbers. My hand shook and I hated that, but I kept shooting until I had enough. Then I climbed down and stared at our buzzer board again like maybe I'd miss an obvious fault. Nothing. The board worked. The ticket was bullshit, or it was bait, or it was both. I should have called the manager from that closet. I know that now, but my brain locked onto the handwriting. I'd seen him write it 100 times on package slips and little left with concierge cards. Same slant, same cross sevens, same way he dots I's like he's stabbing paper. I couldn't unsee it, so I went down with my tool bag still on my shoulder because I didn't trust leaving anything behind for someone else to secure. He sat at his desk like always, awake, pen out, notebook open, the lobby camera monitor glowing beside him. He looked up and smiled at me like we were on the same team. It didn't land the same anymore. It felt like he'd been smiling at a joke I didn't know I was part of. I reached over the counter and picked up his delivery notebook. I didn't ask. I just grabbed it. If he was innocent, he'd act offended. He didn't. He watched my fingers, calm as a priest, like he'd already decided I couldn't touch him. Same unit numbers. Notes like alone, late shift, new boyfriend, walks dog 11:20. Not package notes. Not signature required. Actual surveillance. Some pages had arrows and little timelines. Comes home 2:40. Lights off 3:10. Curtain open. Bathroom. Fan 15 minutes. Stuff you only know if you stare at someone's windows or listen at their door. I flipped faster and felt this tight, sick heat climb into my chest. There were notes about an older woman's meds. Notes about a guy who doesn't lock. Notes about who rides the elevator together and who avoids it. It wasn't curiosity. It was inventory. Then I hit a page with my name and my car. Leaves tools in van. Keeps spare key ring. Under that he'd written, like a friendly reminder to himself, backdoor sticks. Jiggle. My face went rage hot. Not embarrassed hot. Rage hot. That spare ring wasn't something you guess. You see it, or you follow me, or you watch me unload long enough to learn where my hands go. I slammed the notebook down and asked him what the fuck he thought he was doing. I didn't keep it quiet. A couple tenants slowed near the mailboxes and pretended they weren't listening. One guy stared at his phone like it suddenly contained the meaning of life. He didn't panic. He didn't even blink hard. He smiled and said I was confused, like I'd mistaken a delivery log for a diary. I told him about the sealing device, told him I saw the tape, told him it was his handwriting. He kept smiling like my words were weather. Then he picked up the desk phone and called the property manager. Not to explain, not to ask for help, to report me. He said I'd been tampering with security systems. He said he caught me messing with wiring. He said I got aggressive, and he felt unsafe. He kept his voice smooth, like he was reading off a script he'd practiced. I leaned over the counter and told him to hang up. He kept talking like I wasn't there. That's what rattled me. He acted like the outcome was already decided. The manager showed up fast, hair still damp, cardigan half-buttoned, pissed that her weekend got interrupted. She didn't ask what I found. She asked why I was yelling in the lobby. I shoved the notebook toward her and pointed at the notes. She glanced for half a second like it was dirty, then slid it back like it burned. I told her to come upstairs. I told her about the device. I told her I had photos. She said we'd handle it internally, which is manager speak for shut up in front of tenants. Then the cops arrived because he'd made it official. They walked in and went straight to him first, like he was the victim by default. One of them asked if he wanted to press charges. I stood there with my tool bag and felt like I'd stepped into the wrong movie where the loud guy is automatically the threat. We went up to the 6th floor. The manager walked like she was already done with me. I opened the panel room and dragged the ladder under the tiles again. I climbed up and pushed the same tile aside, try not to touch anything new, try not to smear my own prints across my only proof. By the time police came, the device was gone. My fingerprints were on the panel room ladder, on the ceiling tile, everywhere. The conduit was bare. No router, no bateripak, no tape, just dust and wires in my own stupid hands all over everything. I pulled out my phone and showed the photos. The cop squinted, shrugged, and asked why I touched it if I thought it was evidence. I said because I'm maintenance, not CSI, and because I didn't know the concierge would call you and flip the story. The manager cut in and said I didn't have authorization to access the ceiling. I told her the ticket put me there. She shrugged like the ticket didn't matter anymore. They asked if I had a problem with the concierge. They asked if I'd been drinking. They asked if I'd threatened him. I kept answering, kept talking, kept feeling my words slide off them. The manager kept repeating, tampering like she loved the sound of it. The cops wrote it down. That was the whole investigation. Write the word that protects the building from liability and pins it on the loud employee. That afternoon, they suspended me pending investigation. No pay. They took my keys for inventory, which is a polite way of saying they didn't trust me anymore. They killed my badge access. My supervisor called and told me to stop making waves. He said the building's important. He said corporate hates drama. I told him there was hardware in the ceiling and a list of tenants in a notebook and my name in that list. He said flat, let them handle it. Like them wasn't the same people who just watched me get framed in real time. HR called the next day, not to ask about the notebook, not to ask about the device. They asked if I'd harassed the concierge. They asked if I'd been hostile with residents. They asked if I had anger issues. They talked slow like I was a child. Every answer I gave turned into another box they could check. I realized they weren't investigating what happened. They were building a file on me. I went home and didn't sleep. I kept opening the photos and zooming in, looking for some detail that would force reality back into place. Zip tie-ins, port shapes, that little cross 7. It was proof to me and noise to everyone else. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those notes. Alone, late shift doesn't lock. I kept picturing tenants coming in at 2 a.m., smiling at him because he held the door, not knowing he'd already written them down like inventory. 2 nights later, I walked out to my van and saw the side door cracked open. Not smashed, just open like someone had used a key and left it that way on purpose. I climbed in and smelled cold metal and old oil. My tools sat where I left them. My bag sat where I left it. Whoever came through didn't want my stuff. They wanted one specific thing, and they knew exactly where I kept it. I checked the lockbox under the seat. The lid was up. The hook inside was empty. My spare ring was gone. I stood there in the parking lot with my hands on my knees, trying to breathe because it hit all at once. If he could take that ring, he could open service doors. He could get into mechanical rooms. He could walk a hallway with my keys and my access and make it look like I did it. And if anything happened after that, I already knew what the report would say. Tampering, hostile employee, suspended and already labeled. 2 nights later, my van door was open and my spare keys were missing. Someone wanted me unemployed and unlocked. A John Doe came in from a river recovery. I typed the basics, printed the paperwork, moved on. The bag left damp spots on the floor because the zipper never seals right after a soak. The deputy who brought him in kept wiping his hands on his pants like the river was still on him. The tech signed intake, tagged the handle, shoved the gurney into the cooler, and slammed the door. Then the phone rang. Then another case number popped up. Then the copier spit out a death certificate request. That's the pace. You don't get a moment to feel anything unless you force it, and forcing it just makes you fall behind. We're not a TV morgue. No dramatic music. It's fluorescent lights, stale coffee, and a system that times out every 10 minutes like it wants you to go numb. I sat at my desk with a stapler that bites and a keyboard shiny from my fingers. I pulled the case number, typed unknown into the name field, and filled the blanks the database demands. Sex male. Approximate age. Found riverbank under the bridge. Clothing. Jeans cut off at the knee, one shoe missing. I logged the property bag too. Wallet pulp, dead phone, keys with a cheap floaty keychain. And try not to breathe too deep because everything smelled like mud and algae and old cologne. I double bagged it, sealed it, stamped it, dropped it into the locker, and turned the key like that made the smell someone else's problem. I clocked the tattoo and the scar because that's what you do when a person doesn't have a name yet. Black line work on the forearm, like a compass rose, the top point chipped where skin tore. Scar on the chin, thin and white. I typed it in and kept my eyes on the screen. I remember thinking the ink looked taken care of, like somebody had checked it in a mirror that morning. Then I hit print. 2 copies. One for the case file, one for the investigator's slot. I punched holes, clipped it, walked it down the hall, and kept moving. The next morning, a missing person flyer hit my desk. Same tattoo, same scar. The family hadn't been notified yet. It slid under my keyboard with the usual stacks. One of the admin girls prints flyers for volunteer searches and dumps them around the building because she can't stand sitting still. Usually I don't read them. Usually they're for people we haven't seen yet. This one stopped me cold. Normal guy, baseball cap, cheap smile, eyes tired in a way that made him look like somebody you'd pass in a grocery store. Last seen near the same river. Reward. Phone number bold enough to bruise the paper. I pulled up Ardot's intake photo and compared. Same chin line, same ear shape, same damn compass rose. I zoomed in until the pixels broke and still couldn't talk myself out of it. My mouth went dry. We had him, and nobody had called anyone. For a second, I actually thought about dialing the number on the flyer myself, just blurting it out, just doing the human thing. Then my brain did the county policy bullshit. Privacy, notifications go through investigators, don't contaminate, don't interfere. All the rules people hide behind so they can sleep. I flagged it for the investigator. He brushed me off and told me not to play detective. I started with email because that's how you keep your hands clean. Subject line, case number, scan of the flyer, a short note, possible match. No answer. I printed it and dropped it in his slot too. Still nothing. I caught him in the hall and said the flyer matched Ardot. Tattoo, scar, same river. Maybe take 5 minutes and confirm before the family wastes another day hoping. He didn't stop walking. He gave me that stay in your lane, stare, and repeated it. Don't play detective. Then warned me not to put my hands in shit I didn't understand. That one stopped feeling like office ego and started feeling like a lid getting pressed down. Because I did understand. Chain of custody is the whole point of the place. If a body moves, there's supposed to be paper, signatures, scans, timestamps. Otherwise, it's just a backdoor. 2 days later, the dose file in our system showed released. Not to a funeral home, not to the state, just released. No signature, no chain of custody scan. I found it while correcting a misspelling in another case. The search bar auto-filled his number, and I clicked without thinking. Status, released. Timestamp, destination blank. The usual drop-down options gone. The release to field just sat empty like a missing tooth. I pulled up 3 other releases from that week to compare, because my brain kept begging for glitch. Those ones had funeral home names, receiving signatures, scan forms. This one had nothing. I checked the paper binder we keep for overnight transfers. The page for that date looked too clean. like it had been ripped out carefully and replaced. The staple marks were there, but the sheet wasn't. My hand started sweating on the paper like it was hot. I didn't open the cooler. I couldn't. I stood by the door and listened to the compressor hum and pictured an empty shelf and a tag still dangling from the rail like a joke. I pulled camera footage for the loading bay. At 3:14 a.m., a van backed in with no plate visible. A man in scrubs rolled out a gurney with the same body bag shape and moved like he'd done 100 times. He never looked at the camera. He knew where it was. Getting footage isn't my job. That's the trick. Everything ugly lies between jobs. But the county's cheap security passwords get shared, and I had just enough access to hang myself. The loading bay camera is a bad angle, washed out by the dock light, but the movement is clean. Dok doorlifts. Van backs in like it's on rails. No hosetashchen. No driver getting out to look. Just reverse, stop, door opens. The guy steps out in blue scrubs, gloves, hair covered. Not our staff. His lanyard hangs, but the badge card stays flipped. He keeps his head low, like he's counting steps, like he knows the blind spots. He pulls the gurney out, and that bag shape hits me hard. I know that slope. I know that sag. He rolls it inside, one hand on the rail, the other catching the door so it doesn't slam. He takes the same route toward the cooler like he's following tape lines, only he can see. I rewound and watched his hands. Steady. No hesitation at the corner. No looking for keys. Like someone had already handed him access. 20 minutes later, the van rolls out again. Empty. Same slow, control backing. Still no plate. I watched until the taillights disappeared and the dock door dropped shut like nothing happened. I printed the footage stills. The printer jammed, and when I cleared it, the stills were gone from the tray. I watched the admin printer choke, popped the panel, yanked the crumpled sheet, hit resume. It ran. I saw pages slide out. I heard them land. I reached down. Empty tray. No warm paper, no toner smell, just nothing. I checked the print queue on the screen. Job complete. For pages. Timestamp. Like the computer swore it happened. The tray stayed empty anyway. My throat tightened and I tasted metal, like fear has a flavor. I stood there with my hands half open, trying to decide if I was losing it, and then I heard heels hit tile fast. My supervisor walked in too fast, eyes on my hands, and told me to clock out early. No greeting, no question, just straight at me. She said I looked tired, said I'd been making little mistakes, said I didn't want mistakes on my record. Her eyes kept flicking to the printer tray like she expected to see paper in my grip. I told her this wasn't a mistake. I told her this wasn't some fucking typo to fix and forget. I told her someone removed a body without a signature and I had footage. Her jaw tightened. She didn't deny it. She stepped in close and said to drop it if I liked my job. I pushed back and she snapped that this wasn't a morality contest. It was a county building and people who made noise got cut loose. Then she stood by the doorway while I grabbed my bag, like she was making sure I didn't accidentally go anywhere else first. I clocked out because I'm not brave. I'm a clerk with rent and a car payment and a mom who checks my location when I don't answer. I sat in my car and stared at the building until my eyes hurt, waiting for a window to light up like someone was watching me back. That night, a new missing person flyer appeared on my windshield. Different face. Same river. Someone was running bodies through our building like it was a side door to nowhere. It sat under my wiper like a ticket. Damp edges. A woman this time. Missing since last week. Last seen on the riverfront trail. Same damn stretch of water. I didn't even finish reading before my throat closed up because now it felt deliberate, like the river was a funnel and our building was the handoff point. I looked around the lot like a fucking idiot, like I could spot whoever did it. I saw nothing but parked cars and the orange glow of a streetlight and my own breath fogging the windshield. I drove home on back roads and kept checking my mirror. I drove back to the employee lot on pure adrenaline. Like if I got there fast enough, I could catch someone mid-lie. I grabbed my badge and walked up to the door. I swiped and got a red light. I swiped again. Red. I tried the side entrance. Red. I stood there in the dark with the plastic card in my fist, feeling stupid and loud and exposed like I'd just announced to the whole building that I knew. I called the investigator again and got voicemail. 10 minutes later, my access badge stopped opening doors. I deleted a post that shared student's address. The poster DM'd me a sorry. Then my office phone rang with someone pretending to be my supervisor, using her exact voice, telling me to verify a student record right now. The call Idaho spoofed our own number. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I work student services, the gray little hallway between kids and the stuff that keeps them alive, housing, aid, accommodations. I have access to just enough private data to ruin somebody if I screw up, and we get drilled on it nonstop. So when I saw that forum post, full address, unit, gate code, a screenshot ripped right out of our portal, I didn't hesitate. I yanked it down, banned the account, filed the incident report, and sent the usual screenshot bundle to IT security. 3 minutes of work. Then that sorry slid into my DMs like a stamp. Lowercase. No name. No vaguing. Just done. My stomach tightened anyway, because the people who actually regret shit don't write like that. Then the desk phone lit up. Caller ID showed our own main line, like an internal transfer. I picked up and heard my supervisor. Same clip pace, same tiny breath before she gets sharp, same way she says my name when she's already annoyed. She told me to verify a student record right now. She never says right now. She says when you have a second, even when she means drop everything. I hesitated and the voice got colder, like it was offended I wasn't obeying fast enough. It demanded I confirm address and date of birth. Address again. Always the address. I asked which student. The voice snapped back. Don't make me work. Like I was a problem it had to process. That phrase landed wrong, like it didn't understand how humans talk, only how bosses talk in movies. I hung up. I didn't explain. I just slammed the receiver down and stared at my screen, waiting for my brain to catch up with what my hands had already done. 5 minutes later, campus police rushed in because someone called in a threat for my extension. They pulled my call logs like it was proof. The logs looked clean and official. I looked guilty anyway because I started shaking. 2 uniforms and a plainclothes guy with a tablet stepped into our office like they owned the air. People went quiet in that immediate, cowardly way offices do. My supervisor came out of her meeting and froze when she saw them, then shot me a look like I'd lit a fire under her day. The plainclothes guy said my full name and asked me into the hallway. He kept his voice calm, but his eyes stayed on my hands like he expected a weapon to appear. He told me dispatch received a call from my extension, a threat against a faculty building. He asked if I'd placed any calls. I said no. It came out too fast. He asked if anyone had access to my desk phone, my workstation, my login. I said no, then realized how stupid that sounds in a shared office and corrected myself. People walk by, but nobody uses my stuff. He asked if I was having issues, like maybe I was the kind of person who snaps and calls and threats between Outlook and lunch. Then he turned the tablet so I could see the call detail record. Timestamp, duration, routing path. It looked perfect. It looked like the system itself had signed it. My mouth went dry. I told him I'd just gotten a weird call from an internal line, someone using my supervisor's exact voice, trying to get me to verify a record. I watched his face for the moment he'd go, "Oh, that's serious." Instead, he narrowed his eyes like I'd just read a script. One of the uniforms muttered something about spoofing, like it was a magic word that solves everything. I asked them to pull the recording. Dispatch records calls. He said they would. His tone said, "Later, if we feel like it." They took photos of my desk phone. They wrote down my extension. They asked for my personal number. They left me standing in the hallway with that hot, humiliating feeling that the building now had an opinion of me. Back at my desk, my supervisor hissed that I should have told her before making it a police thing. I told her I didn't call anyone. She said the logs say otherwise. We stood there staring at each other over a beige phone like it was a gun on the table. I tried to do the sensible thing and loop in IT again. They sent me a canned reply. Reset passwords, verify MFA, don't engage. We're investigating anomalies. Anomalies. Like my life was a spreadsheet issue. I changed everything anyway, standing with my coworker watching like a witness at a crime scene. I took screenshots of every setting page. I wrote down times on a sticky note. I was already acting like I'd end up in a hearing. That afternoon, my forum account got hijacked and posted my face, my badge photo, and a list of things she hides. Comments filled with strangers describing my car, my route from parking to the building where I stopped for coffee. Not guesses, observations. The post was pinned like an announcement. My badge photo, cropped tight, ugly fluorescent light, sat at the top, and beneath it was a bullet list that read like someone standing behind me narrating my week. Garage level when it rains. The side entrance I use when the front doors are crowded. The exact stairwell that sticks because the handrail wobbles. Then the comments started stacking, fast and gleeful, like blood in water. Blue Corolla, dent on the rear bumper. She looks over her left shoulder at the crosswalk. Coffee at the place by the art building, always oat milk. I felt myself shrink in my chair. I wasn't famous. I wasn't important. So why the fuck were they watching like I was a show? I slammed report buttons. I tried to unpin. My admin controls were gone. It wasn't just a password leak. It was like someone had reached behind the interface and rewired who I was in the system. I called IT. I got hold music. I called campus police back. The officer who answered acted like I was interrupting him. He said if I felt unsafe, I should vary my routine. Like I hadn't just watched strangers map my routine in public. I left early because I couldn't breathe in that building anymore. I walked to my car like every window had eyes behind it. I drove home watching my mirrors so hard my neck hurt. At my apartment, a small brown package sat by my door like any boring delivery. My name was on it, spelled right. No return address. I carried it inside and cut it open over the sink because my brain kept screaming trap. Inside was a cheap burner phone. It was already on. It was already playing a video. It was my bedroom, filmed from inside my closet. The camera panned slow across my bed, my laundry pile, the stupid string lights I never use. Then a hand entered frame, bare, short nails, a small scar near the thumb, and pressed a note to the lens. Don't make me work. My body did this gross thing where it tried to bolt and freeze at the same time. I dropped the phone and it kept playing on the tile, my room wobbling on screen like it was laughing. I ripped my closet open hard enough the door smacked the wall. Just clothes. Hangers. The same cheap cedar block. No person. No camera. But my closet didn't feel like mine anymore. Nothing in my apartment did. I didn't sit down and make a calm plan. I grabbed a duffel and started shoving things in like I was packing for a fire. Not the charger, passport, meds, a folder of lease papers, anything with my name. I checked windows. I checked the bathroom vent like an idiot. I left every light on because I didn't know what else to do with fear. I texted a friend I trusted and told her I needed a couch tonight. I didn't tell her about the closet video over text because it sounded insane even to me. I just said someone was messing with me and I didn't want to be alone. She said come over. I drove there with my hands at 10 and 2 like I was taking a test. I parked under a streetlight. I kept my keys in my fist. I made it onto her couch and passed out in that shallow way where you don't really sleep, you just blink for long stretches. At 2 a.m., her doorbell camera pinged. A man standing there holding my missing keys, like he'd returned them politely. The notification buzzed, and I jolted upright, so hard my back cracked. I watched the clip with the sound off first, like sound would make it real. The porch light clicked on. A man stood centered in frame, calm, shoulders square, like he'd practiced where to stand. He held up my key lanyard to the camera, so the plastic tag and the little scratch on the metal caught the light. He didn't knock. He didn't ring. He just presented them, waited, and stepped out of frame. My friend checked outside with a bat and a lot of anger because she's built different. Nobody was there. The keys weren't there either. It wasn't a delivery. It was a message. I can take things from you, and I can bring them to you, and you can't do shit but watch. When morning came, I opened my work email on her kitchen table and saw an HR notification sitting in my inbox like a bomb with a ribbon. My HR file had a new complaint attached, screenshots of me selling student info. Deepfake text, deepfake receipts, my name stamped on every lie like a brand.